Welcome to Sammy C. Press. Today we're diving back into something more than Shakespeare, Poetry Workbook. We're going to be talking about two poets today, ones that were a bit more silly with their poetry. The first one is Frank Burgess. He was born in 1866 and he died in 1951. He was born in Boston, Massachusetts. He was a writer of what's called nonsense verse. He was also an artist, an art critic, as well as a poet, author, and humorist. He wrote a little poem called The Purple Cow. Never saw a purple cow. I hope never to see one, but I can tell you anyhow, I'd rather see one than be one. He also is famous for other poems like The Goops and Table Manners. The next poet is that of Edward Lear. He was born in 1812 and he died in 1888. He was the 20th of 21 children. He spoke Italian, French, and Greek. He was born in Highgate near London, England. From adolescence onward, he suffered from epilepsy. Edward loved writing poems. He was happiest when doing so. He also loved talking to children. But he was sad when doing most other things. He was able to make a living painting landscapes and birds that he would sell to people who would include them in their books or even hang them on their walls. Pretty awesome, right? This is a cool fact. Edward was hired by Queen Victoria herself. Why, may you ask? Well, that's easy. To be her painting teacher, of course. She was so happy with how well he taught her. Edward loved to use his imagination. He also loved to make children happy. Do you think he maybe liked this so much because he felt sad and he didn't want others to feel sad as well? Did you know he taught himself to read by copying pictures from books? No fancy schooling here. Now, we have seen from Burgess what was called a nonsense verse. Edward's were not quite as nonsense. Even though they may seem to be, his poems were full of rhythm and joy. But if you look closely at the poem's characters, whether they are human or made-up animals, they are all interested in freedom and justice. Notice how they almost always refuse to do what others expect them to do. Edward is mostly known for his poems written in the form of what is now known as a limerick. This was the name given to his poetry after his death. Do you mean Lear did not invent the limerick? That's right, folks. The form was invented in the early 19th century, probably before Lear was even born. The nursery rhyme Hickory Dickory Dock is an ancestor of the kind of limerick that Lear wrote. You can check out some of his poetry, one of which is called The Duck and the Kangaroo, and many, many more. I hope you have enjoyed this discussion of Frank Burgess as well as Edward Lear. Until next time.